Welcome everyone to Weekend Escapades. Behind me you'll see Fort Pearce. And Fort Pearce was a location where they kept about 6 men to protect settlers and protect cattle in this area from being attacked by Native Americans. And this is what's left. Now Fort Pearce was constructed by the Mormon militia. A series of forts protected, or I should say guard posts, sentry posts, called forts, protected along major trails that traveled corridors in central and southern Utah. Each one of the forts had around 6 men armed, and they also had horses. They were all stationed at each post. These forts were designed to, delay the attack parties from the Indian raids. While a rider raced to the nearest settlement for a warning, horses were stabled at night at the guard post, and this ensured that the early warning ride could be made without delay. Fort Pearce, of course, was one of those forts, and it was built here at Fort Pearce Wash. This is one of the primary routes which the Ute Navajo horsemen traveled to raid livestock and, of course, settlements in St. George Basin. Now, this site was selected in the spring of 1866 on this high bluff overlooking this narrow, steep-sided canyon, just above the natural springs. And this is one of the only springs for miles. A guard post along Fort Pearce Wash was the perfect location, and a small number of armed men then could easily defend this location. So this fort is approximately 42 feet north and south, and 22 feet east and west. And these walls originally were 7 to 8 feet high. And of course some of these walls are still that high and exist. They've been rebuilt maybe a little bit at the top. It's in fairly good condition. Now this fort never had a roof. As funny as that sounds, with the weather and the elements, I imagine you had to try and stay in the shade, or how did you try and stay warm? Because the wind would probably whistle through here. And of course the fort was here to protect this wash right here from Native Americans. That's what this fort was designed for Native American raids that came through the wash and attacked the settlers. And through those Black Hawk Wars at the time, there were quite a few casualties on both sides. There's not much left, but very interesting to see the positioning of this fort and what it protected. Now we've been to Fort Pearce before, of course, and one of the reasons we like to come back and document this is simply because you never know what happens to some of these locations that were built 1800s. It's because they deteriorate so rapidly with weather. And you can see this one here. Last time we were here, this wall was still standing. Documenting this and just finding out what it looks like throughout the years. And it's always nice to come out and visit because the weather's so crisp and cool today and beautiful out. But this wall is definitely fallen down. Now, I don't know if there's ever a volunteer time to come out and help put these things back up. I hope there is. I'm going to have to look online because it might be a great day to come out and volunteer and help and be able to get this back where it was. I see they've put some rebar in it to hold it together. But all this sandstone was cut and used to build these forts. So local sandstone that they quarried to put this fort together. And maybe, just maybe, this is all going to be put back up. It would be nice to see. That's quite a lot of stone, that's for sure. Okay, so on the bottom trail, we're going to go try to find some petroglyphs that are in these rocks that are ahead of me. But you'll see right up here, that's Fort Pearce, right up there where we were. And right in front of me here on the trail, it said that this was a stable. So what they had is about 4 to 6 men that would stay up there in the fort. And then when they had a raid, what they would do is spot the Native Americans, and in case of a raid, they would keep their horses here in the stable. So this is an angle of where the fort was, where there would be 4 to 6 men that would stay. And if there was a raid that came through the wash that's right down below us, they would spot that raid from Native Americans to get the cattle and go after settlers. Now, that was during the Black Hawk Wars, and a little bit of unrest was happening. But this would have been the area where the stable was, where they would keep the horses. Now, one of the men would ride to the settlement and warn the settlers of the attack, and the rest would stay here to kind of, I guess, disrupt the raid, slow it down, or stop it completely right here in this wash. Let's go find those petroglyphs. Okay, so after walking down the trail just a little further, not that far actually, there are some stones that have fallen down right in front of me with the petroglyphs on there, and it kind of made like a little cave. I'm going to share that with you right now. The first site of petroglyphs in this area. And it's so funny with petroglyphs, when you get close to them, it's almost hard to see them as clear as when you stand far away and unfocused. In some cases, a lot of damage from the weather, but you can still see it here. One of the other things I find about petroglyphs and find it fascinating is there's so many theories as to what they are, who made them, what they're representing. A lot of people talk about aliens, and a lot of people talk about just, you know, it's a language, right? It's a writing of stories of what the Native Americans did. All kind of controversy over these. And there's a lot of them in Utah. Okay, so we've just climbed down from where the petroglyphs were that we found right here in this little alcove. A little steep, a little slippery, a little sandstone. You can see why they, or where maybe they quarried the sandstone for the fort, because all this, you could just carve this sandstone out. And it makes these amazing blocks. And it holds up to the weather pretty good. So a lot of quarrying went on here to build those forts. We're going to head down this wash just a little further and see if we can find some more of the petroglyphs. They seem to be high up on the cliff, and the rocks fall down as the one we saw there earlier, but maybe right over in that area we can see some more. All right, so we did some hiking from down here, came up that sandstone bluff, and right here there's like a little part of a fort or a protective area. Maybe that was just an outpost. You can see it would be a view of the wash with the water down below. A very good view from this location, and I would think that's what that would be. Okay, so just the proximity, there's the fort there, 42-foot long fort where we were inside of. Then of course here, that's the parking lot right over there. They're filming a commercial for a travel trailer over there when we pulled in. And this is the wash that they protected. And right here would be that lookout. Right there. Now they may have reconstructed this a little bit, but the bottom stones have been there for quite some time. That makes me think that this was the actual lookout, with the fact that it's looking out over this wash. The last time we were here, we did not see this because it was quite the hike up here to get to it. And when I was reading about the location, I didn't hear anything about this. It's kind of a fun little find right there. Now, in reference to where we're at and looking for more of the petroglyphs. It's funny, the petroglyphs are always like on the cliffs or the rocks, different kind of stone that they carve into. And I'm up here pretty high. You can see over the cliff there. Can't get up to those cliffs over there unless I was a mountain goat. I'm betting there's more that direction. I'm gonna walk along here and look a little bit without getting too close to the edge, of course. But I don't see any more. And this up here, of course, is all sandstone. But this is the perfect rock for it, right here for sure. I don't see any. One thing I do see on the rock is right there. Looks like somebody came up here and probably hooked up some mountain climbing gear and rappelled down this rock, because that's definitely what that would be used for. People hook up on that and put their rope on there and practice mountain climbing, or rock climbing I should say. One thing in visiting these locations, it's hard to capture the fact that hundreds of years ago there were settlers that built this fort to protect what they thought necessary, and the Native Americans thought they needed the land as well. Now, all of these stones that built this fort were quarried right here on the land, so there was a tremendous amount of activity, but now it sits silent in the desert. And also, thousands of years ago, these petroglyphs were put on the rocks, and they capture the history of what was once on this land before any pioneers thought to exist. Well, that's going to do it for today, right here from Fort Pearce, directly behind me. We hope you enjoyed this adventure. We sure enjoyed making it on this beautiful day, getting very wintry for sure. And until our next adventure, goodbye from Weekend Escapades, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey, motorcyclists on the hillside.